Everybody, hello, and welcome to the 3+1 live cast.
What's up, everybody?
Okay, Tracey, where are you tonight? Tracey, how do I say it?
Duvalier.
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 Yeah.
Tracey is a world traveling, noted actress of stage and film. Tracey, where are you tonight?
I am in Richmond, Virginia, back where I've been filming this TV show, and hopefully it'll be over soon. Hopefully.
And then they didn't clean up all the COVID. They didn't cleaned all the COVID up out of there.
Maybe. We hope.
They better have. We are very fortunate tonight to be joined by an author, a wonderful book. I can't wait to talk about it. I bought this book, Duvalier Malone, because I've been pronouncing Duvalier all the wrong time. So Duvalier.
You know, people pronounce that. When I was in school, they did that all the time. And the first time when I got to Alcorn, all of my professors pronounced my name correctly. But all through high school, everybody called me Duvalier. But everybody calls me D, though. That's, Yeah.
So, we're going to say it right. You just got to work with me. It's Duvalier.
Duvalier. Yeah. So, Duvalier. Have you ever heard of Papa Doc Duvalier?
No.
But so Papa Doc Duvalier was a dictator in Haiti. He was a bad dictator.
I didn't say his name right either.
And his son, Baby Doc. Yeah, Duvalier.
Yeah, I just called him Big, Papa Doc and Baby Doc, but now we're going to call you Duvalier Malone. So welcome to the 3+1 live cast, my brother. We're so happy to have you. You are, again, a noted author, a political commentator. I have seen you everywhere since meeting you 4 years ago when I found your book and invited you in to speak to educators. And tell us briefly a little bit about what has happened in your journey since then. So think, in 4 years, what has happened big in your life?
Oh, wow. So in 4 years, it's been that long? Okay, so I've got engaged since then. I got engaged. So thank you. My fiance, he is an assistant professor social professor at Howard University. So I got engaged. I continued on the book tour, and then I was offered. After that, I actually was offered to. I've been reoccurring on Hill TV and Just the News. So I got a real good break for 2 good political commentating jobs here in DC. So I've been doing that the last 4 years and continuing my work with nonprofits across the country, ensuring that they have revenues as it relates to, when we talk about our African American community being so disenfranchised, this is not a new issue, and we all know that. And so I've worked the last 4 years working with churches and nonprofit to obtain grants and resources. That's been one of my biggest initiatives, and just staying on the grind, because I think it's so important that we all use our circles of influence to make a difference, whether big or large. And so really carrying that message across the country. And Zack, as you're aware, the Mississippi Confederate flag came down. I was very active in working on that. I tell people all the time, years ago, when I started I went home and asked the governor for an apology for flying a flag over Mississippi. And at that time, people couldn't, grasp the idea or thinking of like, what is Duvalier doing? And at that time, I was getting death threats and everything. But I knew that after I organized the Emmett Till rally in Mississippi, I saw how racially divided the state was. And after the Charleston, South Carolina incident there, and Nikki Haley brought the flag down, I knew that it was very important to put pressure on leaders. And years after, we see now that Mississippi just raised a new flag this month. And so that's very exciting. And it goes back to, using your voice, even when sometimes people may not, necessarily see the vision of what you're seeing at that moment.
That is, do you still hear it, Tracey?
No, it's gone.
Oh, good. Okay, that's good news. That is amazing that you were instrumental and part of that. That kind of goes into, and I know Tracey has a question. I'm going to say this, all across America, because I've seen your clips, I've seen your amazing commentary. You've done so well. Exactly what you are living, what your book talks and speaks about, and you're living and embodying the book. What I want to know is, were you disappointed when Cindy Hyde Smith held on to her Senate seat in the state of Mississippi?
I was very disappointed, but as being a native son of Mississippi and a native son of the South, we do understand that there is a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of work to be done in the Democratic Party. Mike Espy, who was a former Secretary of Agriculture there, he was also, the congressman for the Second Congressional District, which is the predominantly African American district there in Mississippi. He was the first after Reconstruction. So he has a long history in the Democratic Party, in those established circles. I think a lot of time people look at the South and they don't see the opportunity to be able to initiate that change back home. And so I take in this moment, I would just be bold and say the established Democratic Party has a lot of work to do in the Deep South. When we look at what Stacey Abrams did in Georgia, when we look at it, Stacey Abrams wasn't necessarily an insider in the DNC, right? But Stacey Abrams put in the work, did the infrastructure. So I wasn't surprised that Sidney Hyde Smith won. However, I think it's very important and imperative that we hold this new administration accountable, that we hold Jamie accountable and leading the DNC to put the infrastructure in place that we can win those seats, the Senate seat, and not just the Senate seat, but we need to support people that we haven't heard. Mike Espy is a household name in Mississippi. And just because the nation or people, he had been out of the national spotlight for a while, but he definitely was well qualified to be, to make history again. And it wasn't just about making history, but he was well qualified for the job. But it goes back to the infrastructure that is needed in the South. And so, applause to Stacey Abrams for putting that infrastructure in place. And I hope that the DNC create task forces and different working groups to work with states like Mississippi to get the money and the infrastructure in the training and the know-how to be able to find those voters, because there are people in Mississippi who are not voting, and we need to find those voters and get them out to vote. Mike lost extremely bad compared to a runoff election. And then most time we know that in runoff elections are some of the most best times to win an election, which he came very close to. And again, look at the data infrastructure. Stacey Abrams, whatever analytics she was using, she knew the data in Georgia, and she was spot on. In Mississippi, the posters were saying that Mike Espy was much more up in the polls than he really was. So it goes back to support from the DNC, the establishment not waiting to the last minute to endorse candidates, and to have their ears on the ground.
That's some amazing information. You look young, but I don't know how young you are. What got you started in just being ears to the ground with the politics and what's going on in your community? How did you get started?
So I grew up in a small town called Fayette, Mississippi, and I grew up in poverty in Mississippi. However, I was gifted. I tell people all the time, I was gifted with a grandmother who was 11th grade educated, didn't receive her high school diploma, but she knew she was an excellent reader, writer, and she was an excellent speaker. And so in growing up in poverty there in Mississippi, going home, coming home from school, and some days not knowing whether or not I would have food on the table. My father dealt with mental illness, which kind of led my mom and dad into this divorce. But I always was gifted with my grandmother, who lived right next door to us, because I lived in a trailer there next door to my grandmother's house, where I could see the floor of the ground as I, living in that extreme poverty. But being gifted with my grandmother's mentorship, I discovered and learned about civil rights leaders like, Congressman John Lewis, Charles Evers, Medgar Evers, who, was the president of the NAACP in Mississippi, died in the parking a lot of his home with
Mhm.
Jim Crow shirts in his hands saying Jim Crow must go, fighting for the right to vote. And so my grandmother instilled in me that no matter where I come from, that I could make a difference. And I believed that at an early age. And so to escape from the poverty, I would always listen to leaders like Charles Evers on the radio and commentating and C-SPAN at my grandmother's house, because, you know, at home was poverty, but at my grandmother's house was a way of escape from that. And you know, I do believe that, you know, as the Bible say that one man plants the seed, God's water the seed, you know, and then the increase come. And I believe that my grandmother planting that seed at a very early age in me instilled that love for civil rights, you know, as a subject matter, because back in those days, my grandmother, you know, taught me from an encyclopedia. You know, we Google
Yeah,
everything now, but
yeah.
she taught me from an encyclopedia to research and to learn. And I've never imagined, my grandmother would always tell me that, you know, it was something really special about me. And she would have me to do these speeches on civil rights leaders. And I never imagined that, you know, I would be traveling across the country, speaking and getting involved in the civil rights movement. I'll tell you this story, y'all. And I'll never forget, my grandmother told me a story about Emmett Till. And she, you know, told me the story about, you know, Emmett Till, you know, being that 14-year-old boy that was visiting from Chicago, Mississippi. And she would tell me, you know, like, we have family in Chicago and we migrated, but they all come back in the South. And she said, you know, Emmett was kidnapped and murdered in Mississippi for whistling at a white woman. And she talked about his mother. And she told me the story of Mamie Till Mobley, because my grandmother was so intrigued that Mamie Till Mobley, that she said Mamie Till Mobley, who was active in the NAACP, she came down from Chicago, identified her son, and said something had to happen, because and we know in 1955 people were getting murdered and lynched in Mississippi every single day. But Mamie Till Mobley, you know, displaying her son's body unrecognizable, where the Jet magazine picked it up and it went all across the country, where people were like, oh my God, I can't believe this hate was going on. And we got to remember, in 1955, Brown versus Board of Education was going on as well. And so the racial tension was so high. And I remember her telling me that story, that when you see something that's not right, to stand up and speak up like Mamie Till Mobley did. And she was just intrigued with Mamie Till Mobley. And of course, I had to go in the encyclopedia and look it up and read it and recite it to her. Who would have ever thought, fast forward, that I would be the person in Mississippi, after hearing the news of Carolyn Bryan Dunham, to lead the charge of the rally for Emmett Till. But my grandmother planted that seed in me at about 12 years old. And I called, you know, people from all over the country and said, hey, we need to speak up. We need to do a rally. And these were some very prominent people in the civil rights community. And they said, that's probably something we're not going to touch. I even had, you know, some congressmen who would not endorse the rally. But I knew that it was something that I needed to be done because of that seed of my grandmother. Fast forward, you know, the rally came forth. The Till family joined me there, the descendants of the family, and the community just rallied around me using my voice and platform to organize that. As a result, the very next year, the FBI reopened that case, and it's still pending at the DOJ to this day. And with the new administration and with Kamala Harris there as the vice president of the United States, and she introduced the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, her and Cory Booker. I am very excited that that bill is going to be passed. But I use that example. I know I kind of, you know, we're long-winded there, but I use that example of how I got in it. It was my grandmother's seed. And who would have ever thought that, you know, I would be doing that work? I remember my grandmother also sharing a story to me about the Mississippi Confederate flag. We were at a JROTC rally, and I was at the rally, and they were posting the colors, and I was emceeing the rally there in high school. And I'll never forget, my grandmother was shaking, her hands were trembling next to me. And I said, when I got home, I actually said, why were you shaking when they posted the Confederate flag? She said, that flag represents hate and bigotry. And she said, you have ancestors and family members who were lynched and murdered under that flag. And who would have ever thought I would also be leading the charge to demand the governor to take down the flag? So, how I got into this amazing journey was the seeds of my grandmother. And who would have ever thought that I would be on these national and international platforms that I've been afforded the opportunity to be. And, I'll take this moment to encourage every young person out there. Before I was on television and commentating and there was lights and makeup and suits and nice ties, I was doing, back then we had what we call Ustream. And I was talking to politicians and, I was almost podcasting and, blogging at a time when I was young and in my 20s and didn't even understand and know what I was doing. But all of that equipped me for the journey that God has me on today. And I'm super grateful for every single step that I've taken on this journey, small and large. I treat them and celebrate them all the same.
We are grateful to your grandmother for planting those and empowering you and emboldening you to just be a voice for our community. So I personally want to say thank you to you and to your grandmother. And we got a question down here quickly that
from Bella Birch. They want to know where they can buy a copy of For Those Who Give a Damn, a manual of difference making. That is the book, Bella, For Those Who Give a Damn, a manual for difference making.
Yeah, and they can get it on Amazon, and it's on Amazon, it's on Kindle. And then if they go to my website, they can request a signature copy and I'll mail it out.
And so one thing that we also do is after our interview, you're going to get an email from me that has just a few questions, about 5 to 7 questions that go a little bit deeper than this. And we also put that on our 3+1 website. So Bella, if you haven't gone to the 3+1media.com, go there. And we want to also put a link to the book there as well that can route back to you, either one that you prefer. If you want to prefer us to send our viewers to Amazon or to your website, either one, because this is something that we hope will stay evergreen and keep you in front of those who are a part of our +1 community.
What's your website? Because I want an autograph copy.
It's my first and last name.com.
Okay.
So you brought up something that was really, really good in your notation that goes right into this week's up, right? So one thing that we do on the live cast is we have the up, the down, the clown, and then the best of us. And this week's up, we're talking about President Joe Biden. I hope, let's see. Here we go. We're talking about President Joe Biden and the flurry of executive actions that he put forth to the American people. President Biden has now been in office for 1 week, America, 1 week. In that time frame, he has passed executive actions around climate change, immigration, and equity, as well as COVID-19 and addressing the COVID-19 crisis. Really, this opens the floor for anyone out there watching, as well as our, special guest and Tracey. What are your thoughts about these executive actions and the actions that our president has taken during his first week on the job?
I think it's great forward movement. I've been watching a lot of people like Sean King and some other
Tell it.
Other people who are, expecting him to make these bold executive orders for the African-American Black community right off the gate, when I don't think we realize a lot of the executive orders do directly affect our community anyway. I don't know what some people are we expecting it to say Black community, rebuild, educate. Like, I just don't understand what the expectation is. Maybe we should demand more of that. It baffles me, Duvalier. I would be interested to hear your thoughts.
It's been 1 week.
So
the man has had the job for 1 week. Sean King let me tell you something. There are, and I know, and you know, D, if you don't agree, you just don't agree. I want you to hit me hard with it, but I'm going to lay this out in a very Zachary Kirk kind of way. So I need everybody to brace yourself. Because this is something that I have been sitting on this for like all week. I think it was Monday morning. I was, you know, I'm in my office, but the office is in the basement and it doesn't have good reception. So it really is kind of pointless. I do nothing in here but the live cast. So I still work upstairs at my dining room table. So I'm upstairs working away with MSNBC on the back. Brittany Packner, or I think that's her name, I'm not certain. She was on MSNBC and she was saying, you know what, it's really great that Joe Biden has done some things, but we need to focus on reparations right now. And I almost lost my mind. This man has not been president of these United States for a week. And we're talking about reparations. We have Black civil rights leaders out here saying that he's not doing enough. This man has done so much already that he can do in the seat of an executive. This is his executive pen. The executive pen cannot pass laws. He is not a senator. He is not in the House of Representatives. What he can do is limit, and he is stretching those limits at a massive level. The work that he is doing and the legislation that he's trying to put forth starts with his platform. People don't understand the work of the executive branch, and that really makes me angry. So when you talk about people like Shaun King, I can't give him any credibility. I can't give many of these Black civil rights leaders who are only out here for their own clout and their own brand building an audience. I'm at a point with Shaun King, Tracey, and that I'm saying, you know what? I'm not going to even talk about him anymore. Like, I'm not going to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't want to amplify their nonsense because they refuse to accept progress that's being made. The fact that you have a president who, as a matter of fact, I was reflecting back. In 1 week, Joe Biden has spoken more about equity and civil rights than any other president since Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Yep. I said something to Shaun. I was like, geez, just give us some time to get some things, you know, some legislation underway. Like he's not given us that time, but I also asked him for the resolution. My issue is, if you are going to criticize, and you do have a large following, you do have folks that you can get in touch with, why don't you start something? Why don't you come together with these legislative leaders and provide a solution? But instead, you just badmouth every little step, and it's getting frustrating. But I need to keep my eye on him, because he does also alert us to some things that I'm not aware of that are going on in our community. So.
Duvalier, definitely tell us. Zach said he's turning into a Cornel West. Cornel West has a level of education that Shaun King lacks. Also, Cornel West doesn't have the history of misogyny and anti-Black women sentiment. Shaun King has done some disrespectful and very ignorant things to Black women, said some very ignorant things about Black women that I am unable to forgive.
You know, a couple things like Shaun King and those activists. I'm like Tracey here. They have their platforms, and there are some things that we can kind of, you know, garnish from a particular racial discrimination, profiling, police brutality. Pretty good at that, and then people, you know, branch off into other areas. I'll say this about the new administration so people can be informed. When we look at the president of the United States, he is setting a tone in the executive branch and those executive orders by commanding from the leaders, this is my vision, this is what I am going to sign when it hits my desk. So we got to understand that the Congress and the Senate, you know, they are the lawmakers, they are the legislators, and that's what they are sent to Washington to do. But those executive orders were needed so that on the world stage, internationally and nationally, that leaders will understand this is what's going to be tolerated here in the United States of America. So I applaud him for that, because what happens is those executive orders are going to filter into the legislation and the laws that is going to filter down to the states. And one thing about governors and politicians, they are going to go in alignment with the commander in chief because it affects funding and different things that are coming down the pipeline. So we have to give the administration time to move forward. He had to reset because there were so many executive orders under Trump that we don't even have time to go through tonight that were not right. And so he's chewing gum and talking too. I think what we have to focus on now is to not lose sight of what really pushed things through in Washington to filter down to your homes. We've lost over 300,000, almost over 400,000 people now to COVID-19, that people are still unemployed, that people are, our babies are still not able to go to school in certain parts of the country. That our hospitals are at capacity.
And maybe shouldn't be allowed to go to school in other parts of the country. Like there are,
Exactly.
Even when you have places like Georgia where schools are open, you maybe shouldn't have schools open.
Exactly. And it goes to the point now, you all, your Congress and your senators is the reason why funding haven't got down to where it needs to go, because they can't make a decision. And so we don't need to lose focus of the visionary and what I said earlier. We have to hold the DNC accountable. We have to hold our political leaders accountable, that we have to get leaders in the pipeline so that we can maintain power and more seats in the Senate and in the Congress, which is very doable. Stacey Abrams showed us a blueprint. It is doable, and we have to focus on that, because if we do not focus on that, there is going to be a tug of war in Washington for the remaining of the Biden administration. We got to also understand that we have the split votes in the Senate. And Kamala Harris, she has ambitions to be president of the United States one day. And so the chances of her breaking legislation, breaking, a tie, is going to be slim to none. So we have to make sure that we hold political leaders on both sides of the aisle accountable to work together to make sure that the American people are taken care of. Because while we're sitting here and talking about these executive orders, people depend on that one-time payment that's coming to their homes. They depend on the food stamps that was included in his executive orders, that at the state level, they are respecting the executive orders and moving forward. You have to understand that so many employees are racially discriminated against across the government and different agencies. So him moving forward with these racial equality executive orders are needed. Him making $15 an hour minimum wage for federal employees is going to trickle down to the states, because Democratic governors are going to be compelled to move forward. So we have to look at that and understand that the executive branch is only one power of the government. And Joe Biden is literally what he is. He is the leader of the free world. But in order for legislation to hit his desk that is going to get passed, it's going to have to be us working together, bipartisan, in Washington. That's the only way we're going to be able to get things done. And we have to hold Democrats accountable too. While they were on vacation, people were still hungry. They were still standing in lines. And I don't want us to forget that. I am excited about Kamala Harris being in the White House as the Vice President of the United States. I am excited about Georgia sending Reverend Warnock to Washington. But outside of being the first and outside of us, making history, we got to reach the people that need to be reached. Because I always think about those people in Mississippi that were just like me, that the food stamps were just enough for you to have food when you got home from school, not while you at home all day long, y'all. And so we gotta hold our political leaders accountable. We gotta make sure that funding hit from DC to the mouths and the people that need it. And it starts with the Congress and the Senate. These executive orders are merely just a guide, a print for the lawmakers to be able to make decisions based on what the president is going to sign.
So how do we better educate the community on how these executive orders actually work, how the legislation actually works? Because I'm going to be honest, I didn't really pay attention until this election came around, and I started getting better educated on it. And I was, walking around ignorant, like a lot of people, like, well, why can't Biden do like I'm just saying this, but why can't Biden do like Trump? There are a lot of people that feel that way and they don't realize, well, Trump had the Senate. He had people that could help usher in these new laws. You know, he didn't pass them. He just wrote them and they pushed it through. So how do we better educate the community?
I think it goes back to doing exactly. I keep using Stacey Abrams because I think her fair fight was infrastructure was amazing. We have to have conversations. We have to have small talks like this. I'm grateful for you guys' platform, talking to everyday people. There are so many people that are across the country who don't watch mainstream news media, and they're not talking about that. And so we have to have conversations, and we have to use these environments, working with our churches and nonprofits. It's time for our pastors at this point to, in the African American community especially, to educate and to allow that information to come into their churches, because it's one of the most powerful platforms that we can ever use in our community. And it starts with educating our family, our kids. And I always say this, y'all, and I totally agree with starting with the youth. I spend so much time making sure that we educate young people and invest in young people and giving them an opportunity and a platform, because they are going to be the generation to really make a difference in our community. Because when we look at the establishment do not want you to be educated. How many times have your political leaders, establishment, Democrats or Republicans alike, have been into your churches and your communities outside of election? How many times have they hold seminars? And the reason why I'm able to say this, I have done tours in my home state of Mississippi, and they have not heard from people. And I say, if you haven't heard from them, why are you still electing them? Are you crazy? And so we have to hold them accountable, but it starts with identifying who those leaders are in our community, who those young leaders are in our community, and giving them a voice, giving them a platform. And we have to talk to each other. I think, Trump made us talk to each other. He made us strategize. And so I think this is not time for us to get comfortable. And I understand everybody's anxiousness with the, executive orders, and they want to see things happen. If you want to see things happen, start calling your congressmen, start petitioning them, start creating PACs and identifying other political leaders. And I guarantee you'll get them in your church, And so we have to leverage that and be informed, but it starts with grassroots organizations. I can't say that enough. There are so many Black news outlets in different places that are Black owned, that are grassroots, but they can't get a leg up. And we got to do better by making sure that they are able to leverage those contracts. And another thing, before I kind of turn it over to y'all, one thing that we got to do in our Black community is we got to stop with the I game. And like Zach started off with, so many different activists and different established, like the National Urban League and the NAACP, which I am a member of, but we got to hold them accountable. There is no reason why, and I use this for example, y'all, when we look at the presidential appointees that are coming up outside of the ones that are Senate confirmed and cabinet level appointees, there are other positions that are all across the federal government that African Americans can assume, right? When you look at the Victory Fund, is supporting people, the LGBTQ community, and getting them in the pipeline for the appointmentship. When we look at the NAACP and we go to their website, do we see anywhere where you can submit your resume and there is a panel of people who are reviewing those, who are prepping you to be able to take on those positions in leadership? We have young people who are ready to put their hands up and to fight, but we hear them on national TV giving the same old talking points that they give every time, but they're not investing in the younger generation. They're investing in the who's who in the community. They're investing in those who they know, but they're not creating these task forces that will help our community. And we got to start showing up for our people, y'all, we don't know their names yet. That, we haven't reached them in the grassroots community, but they're doing good work and they're qualified and they're educated. And we got to start giving them a seat at the political table of power. And it only starts when we start maybe creating a alternative PAC. I love the squad. I think we need it in Washington. We got to start looking out for one another, y'all. We got to.
The squad had a great day today. It was amazing. AOC and Ted Cruz have been back and forth all day. Bella, Tracey, and I are here every Thursday. So we do 3+1 every Thursday. I know you know me from Five Guys on Live on Monday. So definitely check me out on Monday, but come and check us out. Tracey and I are here every single Thursday where we do it. And what we do is more of an in-depth interview with our guest. And we talk about the current events. But we go a little bit deeper and we don't do as many. So it's a little bit different than the Monday night format. Alomre Duvalier is in Mississippi as well, from Columbus. And I hope that he is still working on getting a Fair Fight chapter started there. So there is, we have young people in Mississippi, as you know, I too am a native of Mississippi, who, you know, we are going to continue to work with and encourage, because, you know, to me, Mississippi is the next state to turn blue. A lot of people believe that, but there's no question that Mississippi has the greatest potential of any state next to Georgia now to turn blue because of the high number of African Americans who live in the state. The problem is, due to voter suppression and disenfranchisement, people don't vote. And it's a lot harder to vote in Mississippi than it is to vote in Georgia. In Georgia, we have no excuse absentee ballots. Not the case in Mississippi. In order to absentee ballot vote in Mississippi, you have to have medical evidence or tons of excuses. You can't just vote early. You only can vote on election day. So if you have to work or you have issues, you can't vote. In addition to that, you have employers who purposely make it difficult to vote on election day, where they schedule you to work if you're Black. They keep you late if you're Black, so you don't work. You'll work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and you miss the whole chance to work. To vote. So those are the things that our family members who live in Mississippi are having to fight through and having to go through. So glad that you'll join us, Bella. I think you'll enjoy it. We always give you a variety of guests and topics. And then you're right, it's sad, but when people talk about why is Mississippi still so backwards in terms of how they vote, those are the reasons why. Tracey.
How can we change that though? Like how?
This is the thing. This is the challenge with that, is you can't change it. It can only be changed by legislation, and the states have the power on how they vote. Think about this. In Georgia right now, they are working to throw out no excuse absentee ballots. They now want to make it like Mississippi when it comes to absentee ballots, so that and Alomre, go ahead and type it in there. Tell us, your perspective on that, while I give, just my limited perspective, as I don't live there. So this is what happens in Georgia, because Democrats won. The Republicans, who still control the state house, because we don't have any Democrats elected in state office in Georgia. Every position, governor down, is a Republican. The majority of the Georgia House, because this is what state controlled, they're Republicans. They now want to make it, if you vote by absentee ballot, you have to include 2 forms of ID. So you have to go and get an absentee ballot, make a copy of your driver's license, and then have another form like a passport. When they know that there are a number of Black people in this state that may not have 2 forms of ID. There are some people that don't have 1 form of ID, but they're still registered voters. So that is what we're fighting against right now. And because they are the majority, they could very well win. So the key is, we have to not just vote for President Biden and Vice President Harris. We have to vote in every single election, and we have to always vote in our own interest. Now, there is a way that things could change in Mississippi, and that would be the John Lewis Voter Protection Rights Act, legislation from Congress that would extend voting rights and make a universal right to people to vote, that would face challenges in the courts that would probably get supported and overturned by the courts if it is solid legislation. So that's the only hope that we have. And that is what Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock both campaigned on very heavily. And I have hope and faith that will be one of the first pieces of legislation that will get passed in the year 2021.
And we also have to think about, I did a Do You Have a Seat at the Table town hall tour about a couple years ago. And on that tour, we went and talked to people all over the state of Mississippi. And people are ready for change. They want change. They want hope. And they just need the resources and someone of aspiration to do that. It goes back to, and I'm going to keep echoing this because I think the audience needs to understand this. It goes back to the infrastructure from the DNC, the support. It goes back to the support. They have the data. They have the money. They've spent millions and millions of dollars on ads in these different places. We would take just a small fraction of that for us to start flipping Mississippi. Because I'm telling you, I've talked to people all across Mississippi. That's my passion. And all I hear is we just need a little hope. And they're not coming out because they don't have no hope. And they think that life is not going to change for them. I'm telling you what I sit on people's couches and I hear these people say, and they need hope. And with hope comes infrastructure. Being able to, for example, with the Mike Espy, there's no reason why the DNC sent him a bus the last week of the election. He should have been on the ground with a bus for months. There should have been concerts. There should have been headliners. There should have been all kind of people and resources. Because like you said, Zach, we have the numbers. We have the numbers. And there's also a fraction of people in the state of Mississippi that are not African Americans, but they're young people who are also wanting to see their state change. They don't believe in the Mississippi of their fathers and mothers and grandparents. But we got to have infrastructure from the state, from the DNC. And it starts with us holding the DNC accountable.
That's
it
right.
starts holding them accountable.
Well, what does it look like? Because Alon Ray said it's unorganized. What do you mean we need infrastructure? How is it lacking infrastructure, and how is it able to continue?
So here's the thing, Tracy. So in every state, you have your own Democratic National Group, right? So in our state of Georgia, Stacey Abrams used to be the leader. Then it became Nikema Williams, who is now representing John Lewis's seat. Remember when I said I didn't support Nikema? I was disappointed in how she got her seat. Yeah. When you're in that position, you have a lot of say over how the party works and how things happen, how it shakes out. So I feel like she used her position to take a seat that I wish she would have earned. When Alon Ray says the state DNC isn't organized, he's saying like it's not organized. And the reality is, let me tell you a little fact about Mississippi. The leader of the Mississippi Democratic Party has been an old white man for a very long time, although the majority of Democrats in the state are black. So even though the majority of the members are black, the leadership has always been very old and very white. And money always plays a part in power and the power structure, and all those factors are there. In addition, at the national level, as Duvalier said, the support hasn't been there either. The Democratic National Convention, and it was Perez, they look at that he was a chairperson before Jamie Harrison, who was just named chairperson, was there. They look at who can win, and they decide where they're going to put the money. And they determine that, Jamie Harrison in South Carolina and Amy McGrath in Kentucky had a stronger chance of winning than Mike Espy in Mississippi, although demographics should have said otherwise. And so they put when you get those text alerts to fundraise and the emails about fundraising from the DNC, they take that money and they allocate that money where they feel it should go. So they gave large amounts of money to Jamie Harrison. They gave large amounts of money to Amy McGrath. They put a lot of money in North Carolina. They put a lot of money in Texas. They did not put money in Mississippi. So Mike Espy, who is a long-term Democratic champion, was underfunded. And because he got off to a later start than he should have, and he could not overcome the deficit. I didn't see Mike Espy on national television and on the national news circuit until 1 week before the election. And like you said, Duvalier, he didn't have his bus and what he needed from the top level of leadership to do the work to win that state. And it's disappointing. And Cindy Highsmith is someone who should not be representing herself, let alone the state of Mississippi.
And another thing is when we talk about infrastructure from a political standpoint is also data, right? So when we look at Mike Espy, Stacey, I use it for example because she had a good infrastructure with her data analytics system that she used and knew where the voters were. Mississippi doesn't have that. Mike's team didn't have that. His data was completely off. You know why his data was off? Because the DNC have not invested money to go and talk to those voters, to work with the state party for people to input these voters, input these data, call these people, determine where they are. Stacey had a whole infrastructure in place based on those fundings that she independently went out and worked. So I don't want y'all to forget this point. The DNC hasn't always been behind Stacey and the vision in Georgia, okay? They got behind Stacey after the fact when they saw what she did. The last week of her running for her gubernatorial race, that's when all the big liners came in, right? So then Stacey knew what she had to do, and she went and hustled to get money for Fair Fight, right? They wasn't just giving her money like this, right? And so she was one of these people that I think is going to really be very good, and this is going to be an example that I want to use. What's going to be needed of this administration is a couple of things. Is the people that are inside of the White House, they're going to be your national urban leagues, they're going to be your NAACPs, you know, the big names, the CEOs of these companies, they're going to be them. Then there's going to need to be some activists and grassroots people that are standing thousands and thousands, just like they were standing after George Floyd, after, you know, the Black Lives Matter. They're going to be needed to be standing outside the White House while these people are inside giving their agenda demands so their voices can be heard. Because this is just like Joe Biden, you know, said, you know, COVID is a national emergency, and it indeed is. But the effects of COVID that's on the African American community has been a national emergency in this country for years. And it is now time more than ever that we hold them to the fire and we demand a seat at the table. And when we talk about a seat at the table, y'all, I'm not talking about people who've been at the table for years. I'm talking about young people and visionaries that can come to the table with their ideas. Stacey Abrams' idea elevated her to being prominent in the party, which should not be the case. We should be recognizing talent now. And I'll use, for example, on 60 Minutes, they asked Nancy Pelosi, what are you doing to get the pipeline of young people into the party? And she said, well, we have some people, you know, and they were trying to refer to AOC, you know, like, you know, because AOC said, hey, they're not mentoring us. And I agree with them. As someone who has lived my entire life being a grassroots person and having to bust down doors, we should not have to bust down doors within our own community and with our own party. And until the DNC gets that, their chances of holding on to the House and Senate are going to be very slim. And that is my prediction. If we do not get a hold of making sure that we're listening to the everyday people, because just like Zach said, that people don't believe in Mississippi, but if you ever go on the ground, they are ready for change. They are ready for hope. They're ready for somebody to come in and make a difference. And we need the infrastructure to be able to reach those people. I'm sorry, I'm real passionate about that because I talk to everyday people every day and I hear those stories.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear. Hell, I done lost hope. Because I mean, I want so much for us to get our together. But when I think about the lack of mentorship, and I liken it to my career field, I'm not a politician, I don't know anything. There are not or were not older artists that reached back to me and my friend, my peers. And I'm like, dang, that's happening across the board and everything. How are we going to get these young people engaged? How are we going to get them to be more instrumental in creating change? I feel like these young folk are like, y'all do it. We'll just do these TikToks and be fine. And that's scary to me because when I'm 60, they're going to be the ones I'm depending on for leadership. And they TikToking. So what do we need to do?
So Tracey, young people are doing their advocacy in their way. You just may not understand it because you're not of their age. That's the way it always is. When you were a younger woman in your 18 to 21 years of age, although you're not that far off, but you were doing things that your elders may not have understood as being perhaps a relevant thing, right? So I'll use myself. let's say when I was 18 to 21, I may have been surfing the internet or in chat rooms or communicating with people all across the world. Elders may not have understood what I was doing. They would probably want me in the library reading encyclopedias, because that's how they learned and that's how they grew, not realizing that my communication was also growing me on the internet. So young people right now, when you're on TikTok, they are engaged, as Candy stated, in a way that we don't understand. And they're doing work that has been instrumental. Let me give you the example. Young people overtook Donald Trump's Oklahoma rally and made an absolute fool of him. So much so that he wanted to shut down the whole entire app. That is the power of Generation Z and how they are harnessing social media. So they're engaged, and many of them are actually way more involved and way more civically minded than a lot of us who are at an older age. So I think that that's a plus. And so even I think Bella shared here, the younger generation is out there eager to make change. Maybe not all, but like her grandkids, they're out there, they're pushing forward. They're getting involved with Black Lives Matter, Black Student Alliance organizations. You're right, these things are out there, and they're the ones who are doing the groundwork and being the foot soldiers to make it happen. The key is to keep them involved and to not let them get dissuaded. And that's what Duvalier is talking about in regards to AOC. Now, we talked about AOC. This is what we're going to have, Duvalier. I need you to commit. I'm going to have a whole panel. And I'm looking for a more progressive voice, because I'm a moderate liberal. I'm a liberal moderate. I'm right there in the middle. And I love AOC's rhetoric, but I don't like her. I don't like her approach. I love her social media work. I love her outreach. I love her focus on the worker. But I don't like how she tries to get her point across, because she hasn't ever passed any legislation. She's not made one bill through Congress because she is in opposition to the speaker. To me, the answer isn't to fight the power, but it is to work with the power to gain more power for your cause in the long run. But that's a moderate. A progressive has a different view. So I'm giving you advance notice, my friend. That's gonna be a powerful panel. We're gonna have you on there, and it's coming. To keep this moving, Candy said, again, they are so advanced, right? Our young people, and they are also mentoring. They do need mentoring. They do need support. They need that. My job at this point in my career, now some people would say I'm getting too old to run. Like, there are people out there that say, at a certain age, you can't run, you're too old. Now I'm gonna run. I'm letting you know I'm running when I'm older than this. I'm gonna retire. I got some years left to work. When I retire, I'm gonna run. I'll beat the young person I'm up against when the time comes. But right now, my work is to do what I'm doing, but also to donate and contribute to the Young People's Campaign and to give them my wisdom, to give them my knowledge, but right now to give them my money. Young people who run for offices need money, and we are the ones who should be supporting them and supporting their causes. And that's what we're going to have to do. And you're right, Alonra, she is stepping on a lot of toes. We have talked about the up, and now it's time to talk about the down. And this week's down is the COVID-19 vaccine rollout. All across the country, the COVID-19 rollout for the vaccine has been a challenge. In some places, it has been an absolute disaster. Tracey and I live in Georgia. And in the state of Georgia, COVID-19 has started to have an unfortunate surge. We have had people from all around the country come to this state throughout November and December and January. People celebrated New Year's in Atlanta. Clubs are open in Atlanta. Restaurants are open in Atlanta. Masks are not mandated. You would think with COVID-19 surging and the variant strand of COVID-19 that is more contagious being evident and present in the state, you would at least have restaurants requiring masks. Just this week, I read about a restaurant in Sandy Springs, Georgia, that actually tells their patrons to not wear a mask. You don't have to wear a mask. Not that you eat here with masks. Don't even worry about it. No mask required in this restaurant because we believe in personal freedoms. In the state of Georgia, we have a state congressman who is refusing to even take a COVID-19 test To be a part of the current legislative session in Georgia, you have to get tested twice a week. The congressman who represents Sandy Springs refuses to even take the COVID-19 test and has been expelled from the House chamber. So we're dealing with that. In addition, we have a governor who has the lowest vaccination rate in the country. So we have a constant spike in COVID-19 cases, the 6th highest hospitalization rate in America, and the lowest vaccination rate in America, right here in the state of Georgia. That is what we're dealing with. So COVID-19 rollout has been a challenge, to say the least. I want to know your thoughts on this week's down COVID-19 vaccine rollout. No, I don't think it's not Jody Bryce. I don't think that name doesn't ring a bell. If you said the name, I probably remember it. That name doesn't stand out to me.
Oh, y'all want me to go? Okay. I think a couple things with the COVID-19 rollout. We do understand that the new administration was faced with a lot of challenges when they came in. Number one, there was no stockpile, as the former administration said. They had nothing on paper. They were really directing the states to go forth, and that's what the Biden-Harris administration says when there is nothing in place, or because there was nothing on paper. And there's no way to run your government with verbal communications to the governors, et cetera. So the administration is dealing with putting something on paper and working with their scientists and experts. So we got to give them time. I don't think this is as hard as we think it is. And I think it's just it's good that we got some common sense people in the White House along with some experts, because this isn't hard. The president's already moved forward with enacting the Defense Act. So, they're going to be making the vaccine and working around the clock with these different companies, giving them the resources they need. They're going to be deploying the National Guard. FEMA is fully going to be deployed. And so you're going to see them reach rural communities across the country. But again, it's not magic, y'all. We didn't get here overnight. So it's going to take time. That's why the executive orders are in. For example, when we look on travel in the United States to different countries are being decreased now, because having to come back with the COVID testing is decreasing those. The president coming out and making certain statements about what maybe should be closed, what should be closed. We're thinking about it. He brought up maybe we should consider gyms, and they were having these discussions. And when he says something, normally Democratic governors are going to start they're going to fall in line. And so that's why it's good to have people who are in leadership that represents more morality in this country. But we got to give it time. It's no excuse for why this isn't happening. But we got to give it time, and we got to also use what we got in our communities. And so I'm hoping that, this administration also meets with a lot of the faith-based leaders in the African-American community to gain their confidence, by Kamala reaching out to pastors across the country, Black pastors. They may become more confident in the vaccine and take it. And we know when they take it, the chances of their members taking it are going to be increased because they look up to and reverence their pastors in their churches. So we got to get creative. We got to think outside the box. But I do think that we are in good hands with the Biden-Harris administration as it relates to the COVID rollout. They've only been in the White House now, how many days? 6, 7? Is it 6 or 7 now?
Yeah, not many days. But here's the thing, though. The power of the vaccine rollout has been given by President Trump to the states. So it doesn't, you're in D.C., correct?
Right, I'm here in D.C.
An area where there's only 2 states. In the beginning, when the vaccine first rolled out, there were only 2 states that had a true electronic dashboard to sign up for your vaccine that would notify you of when you were eligible, that was giving you real information. And that's the city of DC and New Mexico, of all places. So you're because of your leadership, we're in Georgia. We are in hell. We have the dumbest, worst, most absolutely ineffective governor in America. Brian Kemp said that he would get in his pickup truck and vaccinate folk. That's what we're dealing with. And my argument is that we might need to have a shift in how this rollout occurs from the top. Trump made it something that the state leadership had to deal with. We may need a national response similar to how we had the universal healthcare plan, where we have a national portal and we can start having national distribution of the vaccine that's managed at the national level. Because in these Republican red states, it is being in Georgia, it is being mismanaged.
Yeah, I agree. And so I do believe, even from some sources here in Washington, that there will be a national approach to the COVID vaccine rollout, right? But it also goes back to what you said, Zach, leadership. A lot of states are using their rainy day fund while they wait on funding. And some states are already deploying their national guards that are able to administer these exams. So it just goes back to leadership. And I hate to be, keep repeating myself, but it all goes back into us understanding at every level of government who we are electing. And do they match the morals and our values? It is so important. And I mean, in this point, we have to depend on the federal government in those instances, to roll out and to demand of these states to do certain things. And so I feel you, Zach. It's not going to be easy. I think we all were so excited about the inauguration and the history-making moments and the diversity of the cabinet picks. But this is pretty bad, and it is going to take time to get out of,
And to a long rate, let me tell you something. I get it. Tate Reeves, I get it. Let me tell you something. I know for a fact that Tate Reeves has deployed the National Guard to help support and give vaccines. Our governor hasn't done that. Our health officials are actually begging people like me to just volunteer to help learn how to give a vaccine. Our governor could deploy the National Guard, but he has not made that offer available to the people. You talk about Ron DeSantis. 1 million people have been vaccinated in Florida. Now, in Georgia, we have the vaccines on ice, but they're not in the arms of the people. So that's what I'm saying. This is an epic failure. And to add insult to injury, we had a county in Georgia. It's called Elbert County. And they vaccinated their elderly, and they were having a backlog. It's a rural county of getting people out. So instead of letting the vaccine waste, they vaccinated 500 teachers. The governor of Georgia today said they are on restriction from getting any new vaccines for 6 months because they violated what he told them to do. Because he said he didn't want any teachers vaccinated. He said they should have sent those vaccines to neighboring counties to be given to their elderly instead. Now, and that might be something that makes sense to somebody out there, but let me tell you this. This happened today, but on Tuesday, I watched a live news briefing from our governor and from our version of Dr. Fauci. Her name is Kathleen Toomey. And Kathleen Toomey was asked, do we have people who live in Alabama and Florida coming to Georgia to get vaccinated? Because that's been leaked online on like Twitter and Facebook. And she said, yes, we do. We do have people that are getting the vaccine that don't even live in Georgia, but we're not going to really enforce IDs when we give the vaccine. So she said and admitted that you have people that don't even live in Georgia getting the vaccine, but now our governor wants to punish one county of people who vaccinated teachers that he is making go to school and making them risk their lives, although we have one teacher per week making the news for having lost their life because they had to go to work. You can't tell me you have anybody worse in this country while we live in Georgia hell.
And Tracey, that goes back to we need young people to get on their Instagrams, tag these national outlets so that story can be told on mainstream TV at night. You know what I mean? That's like that. Yeah. Tracey, like that.
I'm sitting over here like this is information, and right.
I'm actually writing an article about it. I'm working on the article tonight, and I hope to get the article done tomorrow. Tracey, it's for the educational website, the educators room that I write for, because we actually had 13 superintendents write a letter to the governor begging him to vaccinate teachers. Literally, at this point, I hate to say this, we have one teacher per day in Georgia dying that we know of. There are others we don't even know of that are dying from COVID-19. Dying of COVID-19, and they're forced to go to work. Georgia doesn't have any unions. We don't have unions, teachers unions in this state, as many places in the South don't have. And the superintendents have to have schools open, and they're simply begging for the vaccine. And the governor's saying, no, teachers don't qualify at this point yet because I failed to take measures in the month that I've had to vaccinate the elderly and healthcare workers. But the vaccines are there sitting on the shelves.
And Zach, when you write your article, send it to me, and I will definitely send it to the producer at Just the News. I think those stories need to be told here in DC so it could be picked up on bigger outlets. So yeah, send it to me, and I'll pitch you to the producer.
I don't have anything to offer, Duvalier. I am an actor and artist true and through. I really come on here to hear your perspective, Zach's perspective, and just for sometimes my opinion.
But you got an opinion about this.
This is not my wheelhouse.
Oh, this right here is going to be in your wheelhouse, Tracey, because I know you. And this week, we had a second down. Now, we're almost done, everybody. Bella's like, look, I done been with y'all for an hour. I got to go. We almost done with rapping. But there is no way we could have tonight's live cast and not talk about this former, thank God he's now a former Seattle Seahawk.
Oh, yeah.
Tracey, this is Chad Wheeler, and this is his girlfriend. And this man, so she says he was having a manic episode, so very well could be the case. And he beat her within an inch of her life because she would not bow down to him. This is the unfortunate picture of her from her hospital bed.
That doesn't even look like that other picture. Go back to the first picture.
Yeah, is that a different person?
She's the same young lady.
Completely different.
He dislocated her. So in the attack against her, Chad Wheeler choked her out, and she did pass out. But before she passed out, he broke several bones. I think he dislocated the shoulder, and he thought she was dead. And she was passed out for hours. When she woke up, he said, "You're alive? I thought I killed you."
Yeah.
That's exactly what has been now reported.
He sat and ate dinner
with her, what he thought was her dead body right there in the room.
So when she gets up and runs into the bathroom, I think for refuge, he goes to the bathroom door and it's like, damn, you're alive?
And Tiffany is right. He wanted her to bow down to him, and that's what she refused to do. This was predicated by his demand that she bow down to him. And Candy, it is heartbreaking. Tracey, what are you thinking about this one? As our Black woman voice.
Well, all I'm gonna say is I hope that she does not go back to this situation, but I will also say this isn't the first time he's done this. It may be the first time that he did it to this extent, but this isn't the first time that he has been manic. If I am a victim and survivor of domestic violence, and it always starts with something really small, whether it's a demeaning word, a little push or something, a look, and then it turns really physical. And this isn't the first time she's dealt with it. It's the first time she got beat like this, and she has to leave because now there's public humiliation. But I know there have had to been other instances, and hopefully she won't go back, especially after the world knows. And he needs his ass whooped. And I tagged the NFL and Russell Wilson, and I said this should not be. And of course, by that time, They had released him from the Seahawks, but I told the NFL they need to do something about this and these players with these anger issues, because a lot of some of it is emotional imbalances. Some of these are chemical imbalances within them, but a lot of them are angry, and they're so good in athletics. They've been superior in athletics for so long that they get a hit on the wrist and they get to go and continue to make money.
And as Mama Vera said, he's already out on bond. He's already out on bond. Now, luckily, the Seattle Seahawks has parted ways with him. He is no longer, I think he's suspended, or he may already have been terminated, but he's out on bond.
Yeah. A lot of these athletes get a slap on the wrist and they get to continue their lives. I'm hoping that this man never touches a football again and is maybe mopping floors somewhere, because he should never be able to play in the NFL again.
And, Candy, I think you're right. I don't think that we as a society has done our work to work on the issue. Duvalier, what do you think?
I think the same thing. It's like we as a society, we haven't even talked about, how these players, as we call them, power, get away with things in this community. And it goes back to, there are two different systems for justice and, everything we talked about tonight, every single topic we talked about tonight. I hate to say it, y'all, there are literally two different systems in America. Yeah. And we have to change that. That's the simplest way I can put it. There are anything you think about in this country, there are two different systems. And until we face that as a country, we're not going to really heal. We have to face it. And that's the reality of it.
And you're right. And you know what? And here's another, I hate to even say this. And I didn't think like this before, but I'm actually thankful I do now. Number one, if he would have been a Black athlete, this would be something that we would be seeing all over the news. This has not really made large mainstream news. It hasn't hit big. But if this would have been a Black man who would have beaten a white woman, it would have been everywhere. If this would have been a Black man who beat a Black woman, I hope it would have gotten more exposure, but I definitely think it's gotten the least amount of exposure that it could have gotten in this time frame. Yeah. Number two, I don't know if we're going to get justice for this young lady at all, because she is a Black woman. And I don't know if the justice system will view her abuse in the way that they should. And that also concerns me. I want to know what the NFL is going to do, and I'm hopeful to watch that and see how that also plays out. And again, Tiffany says, should it be forgiven if it's proven he's bipolar and was having an episode?
No.
That's a narrative they're putting out there. Absolutely. And let's say that narrative is accurate. Let's say that he has a history of bipolar or manic depression, or has a history of mental illness that was the cause of this. It still does not negate the fact that he broke the law. And I still think that no matter what the case may be, his time in the NFL needs to be up, and the law needs to handle it according to the law. Mm-hmm. That is what I believe. And again, I agree with you, Candy. Victim shaming needs to stop, and we'll see to what extent that may play in. I know I'm going to watch this case carefully to see what happens. And another case that I'm going to watch is this week's clown. Nice family, right? Let me make it a little bit larger. That is Pastor Strickland of Kalamazoo, Michigan, and his wife. Right now, they are both in jail.
What? I don't know this story.
Yeah, I don't know this one.
Well, let me give you the unfortunate rundown. So Pastor Strickland, I think it's 2nd Street Missionary Baptist Church. I'm not quite certain of the name. It's not a very large church. Yeah, it's 2nd Baptist Church in Kalamazoo, Michigan. From 2017 until 2019, he and his wife have been charged with sex trafficking teenage boys. Okay. The wife worked at the local high school, and she would find young men that they would proposition to engage in sexual acts with her while he watched. A clear abuse of power and authority. And what a slap in the face to that community in every sense of the word. These two individuals truly represent the worst of the worst, and that's what they have been deemed this week's clown.
What's their names again? I've got
Pastor, yes, you can Google Pastor Strickland. His name is like Stricklebeck, but but Google Pastor Strickland of Kalamazoo, Michigan. And this lasted for years. And there are way more victims, they believe, than who've come forward. But 4 brave young men have come forward and have assisted in this case against this family. Well, the husband and wife.
Oh.
So they certainly got this week's clown of the week. But maybe it was even worse than being a clown.
Crazy.
I'm at a loss for words. You send children to school to get educated, to become more sociable, to learn trades, whatever. You send your kids to church because that is supposed to be a place of healing, a place of restoration. And then you have not just the teacher that they go to, but their a pastor in the community who are engaging in sexual activity with these kids.
It's heartbreaking, but we won't. Yeah.
How, as adults, can you eat? I don't even see how you sit down and have a conversation. So, babe, what you're gonna do is, hey, babe, I got this student. He's failing, but I'm attracted to him. What do you think about bringing him? How do you have that conversation? That, like, to me, you are sick. They need all 10 of those kids need to be taken out of that household. Unfortunately, they will be split up, but they need to, because who knows what they do around those children that they've raised. And who is this in the car? Is that her?
That's her.
She need her ass whooped. I'm sorry.
So it's horrible, but we never will leave you 3+1. We're wrapping it. We will never leave you on the clown or on a down note. Now we got some good news. We always end with the best of us. It's a Black excellence, y'all. And one of the only byproducts of the good things of what we've endured over a summer of racial unrest is that the American push to praise Black excellence is at an all-time high, and we can't let that end. So we have to give a shout out to another HBCU woman and graduate who has now become the CEO of the only Black female CEO of a Fortune 500 company, the one and the only. I'm trying to switch screens. My computer seems we haven't been on too long. It's delayed. Hold on.
I see her.
It looks like it doesn't want to even switch. Hold on. Oh, it switched for you?
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
That's right. Rosalind, or known as Roz, she was the CEO of Starbucks, and now she is the CEO of Walgreens.
I love it.
Love it. We love to do those things. We need more CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. We need more Black CEOs, and hopefully with her being at the top, she'll be able to diversify the boards and things like that. I think this is great. We need more of it.
Yeah. Especially women. Especially women.
Yes.
Women needs, I'm hoping this 2021 ushers in a second wave of the Year of the Women. I think we saw it in 2020 and 2019 some, but I am hopeful that 2021 will usher in, a greater year for women, especially women of color. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, my internet said, no more, shut up. Doing too long. I'm tired. Internet said, I gave you the best I had, the best I could give.
I'm going to get you an extender.
I have one. You know, Tracey. I mean, you've been in my house, so you know from where it's just. I have an extender right here. The extender is right by me in this wall, and I'm gonna leave it at that. Also, I want to say this too. Comcast has finally admitted that the internet in my area is flawed, and they are going. They have made a commitment to repair and add to and fix or upgrade, but it's going to result in being out of service of everything for a period of time. They're going to alert us when that's going to happen. So they have said that. So. As we prepare to wrap, let's talk about are there any products or anything out there that you guys want to share? I did go to Tracey's last week. Duvalier. Tracey recommended Duvalier. Tracey recommended a restaurant. I tried it. It was great. So I recommend that. Johnny's Chicken and Waffles is new. Check it out while it's there. Tracey, do we have anything else or a product that you love that you want to share with our audience?
Yes, but I wanted you to show it to
We'll save it for next week then.
Okay.
Duvalier, do we have anything to share? So
I don't know. I'm not like y'all. I've been stuck up in the house in DC. We don't go nowhere. Man.
Well, is there any like a snack or a drink or anything like that you just loving that you say, you know what, I love this snack. People don't know about it. They sleep on it. Check it out.
Outside of my red wine.
Oh, yep. Your popcorn. What red wine are you loving?
Oh, what do I drink? It's I have to send you the. It's like I have like 4 different ones I do. What is it? Josh is one.
I've seen that.
Yeah, Josh's one is really good. And then the other 2 are I get them at Costco's. Yeah. But other than that, no. When you send me over, I'll think of some.
Well, I'm trying to buy your book.
Oh, I love it. Thank you.
It says order now, but it won't.
It's not letting you click on it?
No, it won't let me order from here, but it's sending me to Amazon. So what I'm going to do. Go ahead.
So no, I was saying if you do contact or give Zack your information, I'll sign you one and send it to you.
Yeah.
Okay, and I want to pay for it though.
That's fine.
Well, yeah, you can always Cash App him too, Tracey.
Yeah.
So everybody, thank you guys so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure. We will see you back on next Thursday, and we will all be in touch. You can follow Duvalier on the internet. So tell them that just put in your name on Instagram, put in your name on Facebook as well as Twitter.
Right. Duvalier Malone, my first and last name. Thanks so much for having me, Zack. Also, Zack, make sure you send me over your opinion piece so I can get you on to tell your story, because that needs to be told nationally.
I will. I'm working on it. You know, I'm laying it out, putting in all my facts, and then so as soon as it's done and she publishes it, I will send it over to you, and we can share it widely, my friend. Thank you so much. Everybody, good night. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Tracey.
You as well. Thank you so much for being here.